Welcome to WinCraps Basics Part 3, Players and Checks. WinCraps Classic is a single-player game. However, WinCraps Pro accommodates up to 8 players. To add a player, just click anywhere on the rail where you'd like the player to appear. You'll be asked for a name. This name can be anything as long as it's not all numeric or a reserved word in auto-betting. This is because you're allowed to access players' names in auto-betting, and therefore it can't conflict with auto-betting keywords. Now don't worry if you don't remember all the words. Whatever you enter here, it will check to make sure that it doesn't conflict, and it'll let you know. The bankroll can be anything from minus $9,999,999 to plus $9,999,999. The player appears on the rail together with 5 checks, 4 check stacks, and a status box. The status box displays the rail. This is the amount of money the player has up in the rail. The bets, this is the amount of money that player has out on the table. And these two added together equals the total available bankroll. Below that will appear the general status, whether the player is losing, even, or ahead, and by what amount. These status boxes are aligned according to the player's menu. Now you can either access up at the top the player's menu, or you can right-click over the status box and raise the same menu that way. Notice here that you can display status boxes at the top, bottom, left, right, near the players, as well as select different sizes. So for instance, if I select small, it gets small, go back to a little bit bigger. I could move this status box as well by dragging it. So if I'll click and hold the box, I can drag it, even on top of the table. Now, another logical selection seems to be to align these so that they're placed near the individual players. That works fine, except in situations where maybe you want to maximize the display of the table. In that case, as you're looking here, the table is almost to the edge of the screen, so the player's status box over here on the left or on the far right would be off screen, and you wouldn't necessarily want that. So in this case, you would either have to align the boxes at the bottom or at the top, or you'd have to decrease the size of the table, either way. Now the checks don't necessarily represent the bankroll. What they are selection checks. They're used to make bets or increment check stacks. The player's actual bankroll, as I mentioned, appears down here in the status box. The selected check has a rotating ring around it. The classic version, the selected check, actually appears in the lower left-hand corner. There's 3 ways to select different checks. One is just to click on the different checks, and that includes these check stacks. And another way is to use the arrow keys. Pressing the right arrow key goes clockwise through the checks. Pressing the left arrow key goes counterclockwise through the checks. And the final way is to press keys 1 through 5 for any of the top 5 checks. So key number 1 will select the $1 check. Key number 2, the $5 check. Key number 3, the 25, etc., etc. So what are these checks in the back that I mentioned were called check stacks? Well, there are actually 100 of them. Each player has 100 check stacks. However, 4 of them are displayed out here on the rail, and you can change which 4 will appear here. These are places where you can literally stack checks, the same as if you were standing at a real table. You can use them to keep track of events. For example, let's say that you wanted to add a $1 check each time an event happened. And then you could just count how many checks you had, and you know how many events you have. You can use them to create custom check amounts. For instance, maybe I want to create a $27 check. I can click on the $25 check, put that next to the 1, click on the $1 check, click twice. Now I have a $27 amount here by number 1. So I'll choose check stack number 1. Now I have, in essence, created a $27 check. And I can use that for making bets, or whatever you want to use it for. You can also use these check stacks just to hold information or to perform calculations for auto betting. Let's add a second player. Once again, we'll give him a name and a bankroll. Notice now that the new player is now become the selected bettor. Again, the selected bettor appears in yellow, and the non-selected bettor or other players appear in blue. The selected bettor also has a selected check shown as a rotating ring. In order to select a different bettor, you can do this several ways. One is to click on the player's status box. So if I want to select Eddie, I click on Eddie's status box. Another way is to click on any of the checks for the player. For instance, these are Trey's checks. If I'll click on any of his checks, I not only select that check, but I select him as the selected bettor. So the selected check goes together with the selected bettor. So once again, choose a different check, also chooses the bettor. Now another way to do this is to press the Tab key. Pressing Tab will go clockwise through whatever bettors are on the table, and pressing Shift Tab will move counterclockwise through whatever players are at the table. Once again, just a reminder that selected bettor is in yellow, and the shooter also has the dice. Now you can move a player. Of course, you could delete them and re-add them. That seems kind of cumbersome. You can just select the status box, move, and then a reminder comes up to tell you to click the rail where you want to move this player. So now I moved Eddie over here to the right. If I wanted to move Eddie right where Trey is, I could just do the same thing, move, and I'll click on Trey's position. And in this case, they're just going to swap positions. So let's make some bets now. What you're going to have to do is select the bettor. In this case, we have Eddie selected, and select a check. We have a $5 check selected. And then we're going to click on a bet. So let's say we want to make a field bet. Every time I click the mouse, it's going to add one of these selected checks to the field. So if I add twice, I get a $10. 3 times, 15. 4 times, 20. And 5 times, I get 25, and the game actually converts it into a $25 check. Now, if I'll hold down the Control key and left click on the on this bet, what it's going to do, it's going to subtract this amount, the selected check amount, from this bet. So Control click will remove $5 each time I click. By the same token, if I had a higher amount selected, let's say a $25 check, each click adds 25, and each Control click subtracts 25. Let's say I had a number of checks here. Rather than clicking 4 times, Control click 4 times to get rid of it, if I'll just hold down the Shift key, Shift click removes the whole bet. Now there's another way to remove a bet, and that is just to point at it and press the Delete key. That also removes the thing. Now let's say you had several bets out here. Here's a big 6, big 8, and a field. I could hit Delete on all 3 of them to get rid of it. I could Shift click on all 3 of them to get rid of them. Or I could do Shift Delete, and that removes all bets at once. Now, you don't have to remember all this. It appears up in the action menu. For instance, here's Remove Bet Delete, Remove All Bets, Shift Delete. There's another way to make bets, and that's to come up to the action menu and either choose key in bet amounts or press the F9 key. It raises a little window that you can move around on the table. So right now it's in the field. That's the last bet that I had accessed. If I wanted to move to place 6, I click on big 6. I click on big 6. So wherever I click on the table, that little window is going to follow around. And I can enter in whatever amount. So let's say I want to make a $28 field bet. I just enter in 28, and I can press enter, or I could just move the box away to another bet, and it'll automatically enter it for me. Now, if I move the box somewhere else, you can see the $28 is still sitting there underneath. When I move the box back there, you can see the 28 reappears. Now let's get rid of that. There are other ways to make bets, of course, are using autoplay and auto betting, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now there's a way to move bets as well. If you'll hold down the Alt key and click the bet and drag it, you can move it to somewhere else. So I'll take the $28 field bet, hold down Alt, drag to big 8, drop. Now I have a $28 big 8 bet. Alt, drag back to $28 field bet. Now, if I drag it to a different bet that has different odds payoffs, at the present time, and this is the default when you first start WinCraps, the auto adjust bet amount feature is activated. So it's going to look at the amount you put on whatever bet, whether it's dragged there or whether you placed it there yourself, and it's going to adjust it for proper odds payoff. So if I take this $28 bet and I drag it to, say, a place 6, it changes it into a $30 bet. That's because the place 6 pays 7 to 6. Bets need to be in increments of 6 in order to get a proper payoff. So that's why it changed $28 into a $30 bet. So I think that'll do it for now. In the next video, WinCraps Basic Part 4, we're going to make some bets, roll the dice, and check some results. Have fun. Bye.